Hi everyone, I'm Jodi Barrows with The Square and a Square, and we are going to be doing one of our Stash Buster live videos here on Facebook tonight. This quilt behind me is one that we've been working on, and it's called Hanging Lanterns. We have already done Stash Buster Class 1 for the hanging lanterns and Class 2. So if you're brand new to watching our Facebook page or you didn't catch the first two classes, go back and look in the video section here on this Facebook page. And this one is called Hanging Lanterns. It's Class 3. It's the last class for this quilt. We're going to show you how to put it together and what I did for the borders. Now, before we get started on the quilt, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure that you hit follow and like on this Facebook page with Square and a Square. Also hit notifications. That way you'll know when we are doing live video sessions or when we post something here on the Facebook page. Now, we're also going to be having a live webinar. It is not a Facebook production. It is a webinar, and we will be doing that through your emails. So if you have not gone to our website, squareandasquare.com, to sign up for our email list, also on this link of this video, we'll be having a link that you can go to with your email. We're going to be doing those maybe even as early as tomorrow. So make sure you sign up quickly for your email on our email list so that you'll know about those video teachings. We're going to have several classes just here in the next few days, and I really want you to be a part of that. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things from cutting and pressing and the square to square units and how to put quilts together and help remove that human element. I like to look at every quilt and put it together in a way that is going to be very fast, fun, fabulous, and most of all finished. Because when we finish a project, we know we can feel really good about starting another one. So for the Hanging Lanterns class, and anytime you want a class or a quilt broke down and you want to see how we would put it together, how I would do it, just send us in an email or in a message and send us a picture of the quilt, and we'll add it to our list of our live video sessions where we take any quilt and turn it over to a really easy quilt to do. So this is our hanging lantern quilt, and I'm still in the process of getting it all put together, but you'll get enough information tonight that you'll be able to finish your quilt. And probably the main tip or hint that I'm going to show you tonight, and the most important thing about putting your quilt together, is about how we're going to number our rows so that you know how many you need in a row, and also how to do these sides where you see these triangle units, because we don't want to mess with triangle units. We don't like that. That's no fun. And that's where the human element can get in and really get things messed up. So first thing is that these light blue spots right here, these little periwinkle, that's my design board. I don't have any fabric in there. Now, I do have some lights and some dark lights in the quilt. When I get the quilt all completed, if it doesn't have kind of the mesh color of all of these kind of meshing together the way I want, I'm going to take the quilt and I'm going to put it in the washing machine. First of all, I'll fill the washer up with warm water. I'll put a box of the RIT dye in there, either a tan or an ecru or a light brown. If it's the powder, make sure it gets all dissolved in your washer. And then when it's all and kind of agitated a little bit, then I'll pop the quilt down in there, and it'll make all of these lights all just kind of, you might say, muddy up together and give your quilt that tea-dyed overall look. And you won't have any light ones jumping out if you don't like the look of that in your quilt. It's a very easy way to do that. So before we talk about the rows, I want to talk about the borders up here. So I just took any of the leftover 4.5-inch strips that we used for our solid squares here. Any of those that I had left, I'm just going to put those together, and that's going to be the outer border just all the way around. However long the piece is, whether it's just a third of a strip, whether it's half of a strip, or whether you have a whole strip, that's going to be the outside border. Then the inner border is just going to be, when you come in here and you cut these apart, we talked about in the videos 1 or 2, how you might have little leftover sections at the end. And so we're going to use those for this one here. This is a true scrap quilt. It was just whatever was there in those scraps to put together. It's not an organized scrap quilt where your backgrounds are the same or any of that. It is a true stash buster scrap quilt. So really, whatever you have, pretty much anything goes. So here we used, and see, these can be any size. It could be left over from our 4 patches, or it could be left over from our strips of our larger pieces. And that is going to be the inner border. Then the 2.5-inch strips that we used for the 4 patch, any of those leftover pieces will be that first border that goes around the quilt. Now, since the quilt is put together diagonally and in rows, it's hard to know how many you need in a row. So I just did kind of an just kind of played with it up here on my wall, and I decided that I would do what I'm going to go out to 20. It's not that it's 20 rows, but it's how many squares or units are in that strip. So let's look at this one right here. Goes from corner. It goes from the top corner to the bottom corner. And you're going to have 2 rows in this corner section that have 20 squares in it. So get you some little pieces of paper and a marker, and you're going to number them like we have here. So you're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. If you decide to make your quilt wider, then you would go 22, 24, and so on. So what this number means is that that's how many squares or units you're going to have in that row. Okay, so let's look at this one that says 12. So this little triangle unit here, we're going to count that. So look how there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you're going to sew 12 squares together. These little triangle units at the top of the row and at the bottom of the row is a square. I'm going to open those up here in just a minute and show you. So you're going to have 12 in a row. So that way you can set at your sewing machine and you know, okay, my lights and my dark squares, my 4.5 inches, I needed a row that had 4. I needed a row that had 8. I needed a row that had 12. I need a row that has 16, and I need a row that has 20. Then the rows that have the 4 patches with the solid squares, 4 patch with a solid square, those are the ones that you start with first. So I had 2 in that row. I have 6 in this one. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 10 in this one. 4 patch row 14. 4 patch row 18, and then the other row that is 20. Remember, these in the corner, you have 20 that are just the plain squares, and you're going to have 20, and those are the 4 patch sections. So let's just look at this row 20 here, which goes from corner to corner. Okay, so see, you can see how that is a row, and it does your light, dark. We already talked about that. Now, this little triangle unit up here at the top, that's a square. We're not going to work with sewing in all of those triangle units. That would make this quilt a nightmare to have to put all those triangle units in. So when I get ready to put my rows together and I get ready to put my border, when you sew your rows together, let me see if a section here that I can handle. Okay. Okay, now I want you to look here at the top. See how that is? So when you're sewing your rows together, you want to make sure that these are all, I'm going to say, nice and flat and smooth. You want this all the way out, and you're going to sew your row together. And see how that looks at the top and at the bottom. See? And then when they go in, this turns into the triangle, and this will go into a triangle. Now, when all of these get sewn together, so I'm going to bring it down here a little bit so that we can see what we're doing. And I have these pinned so that you could see see how that corner looks. See, it had 2 squares. This one had 4. Okay, so see how all of that will look like this going all the way across the top. So when I get my first border all sewn in a long strip, I'm going to lay it across here, and my seam is going to go right through there, just like that, all the way across. Then when that first border is sewn on, I'll come back in here and I'll trim off these little top sections. Now, these little top sections you can use as a strip on a basic square, and we'll show in another video how you can take your leftover pieces and your scraps, sew those onto a square, and you have your basic square for the square and a square. So you're kind of getting, you know, steps for another scrap quilt or another little project. And we'll show that in another video of how to use our scraps. So hopefully you can see here how this looks. So all of this top part would be like this, and then that border just gets sewn on. And it makes it so much easier than having to sew triangle units in all of those as they go along. So hopefully this has given you a new way to look at putting quilts together. And if you're new to working on the diagonal, this is a fun one to get started with. And that's pretty much all I had to show you about the hanging lantern quilt. We still have the crazy log cabin that we need to finish up on. And then also with some of our stash busters, we're going to be working on these little tulips. So this is a new one that will be coming, the tulip time, with your scraps. And this one will be more of what I call an organized scrap. It won't be just to pick up and sew them together, whatever you've got, like we did here with the hanging lanterns, or like we did in the crazy log cabin. So make sure you sign up for the emails so that you won't miss out on our webinars that we'll be teaching. I think there'll be 4 of those here in the next little bit. And if you ever have any questions, just email them to us, or send us a picture, and we'll be happy to do a video on what you're wanting to learn. I'm Jodi Barrows with the Square and a Square, where we like to make quilts fast, fun, fabulous, and finished. Thanks for watching. This is our last class on our hanging lanterns. Bye-bye.